looks like that's live. Looks like that's happy. Let's see here. That seems okay. Cool. All right. So, welcome everyone to Workshop Wednesday, where today I'm going to be trying to make this over here. The board game of Valhalla, an ancient board game played by the Vikings, or at least an adaptation thereof. A lot of those old board games had many different variations, many different versions, so it's not like there is one edition of the game. And so I'm going to be making this by actually 3D modeling the pieces so I can 3D print them. So we're not going to be done tonight, but I thought I would try that out, and then we'll make the board out of probably some fabric, and then like painting on it with fabric markers, something along those lines. So we need to do basically two things here: the pieces and the dice. And the dice have a very specific symbols that go on them. And I'm trying to decide exactly how I'm going to do that, but because there are some things I want to figure out with the dice. I also want to figure out something with the pieces, because we basically have two kinds of pieces. One for one player, one for the other. You need 6 of each, and lots of different options there. You can use little stones and tokens and so forth. But I think I would actually like the tokens to be like little Viking ships. So I'm going to try that out tonight and see what we get. Let me shrink that down. So we've got our my blender here. And let me just pull up a Viking ship as my little sample. Obviously, it won't be that long, but I want to see if I can 3D model something kind of like that. And so I'm just going to go into Blender here and try that. So I need a boat shape, and I need little, twirly things on the end, which are not shapes that Blender is kind of ideal for. Blender isn't really good for curvy shapes like that. But I'm just going to play around here and see what I get. So I'm going to add a UV sphere, and then I'm going to scale it up, and then I'm going to pull up my properties. Then I'm going to scale, let me see here, scale in the Y direction and stretch it out. So I've got a nice long thing here. So that's not a bad hull, actually. I'll probably slice off the bottom so it kind of fits there. But that's not terrible for a, whoops, sorry for that. So there we go. So there's my thing. So just so we're clear there, let me just undo. So that is my, just a sphere that I added. And then we expand it and we scale it out in one direction. And that gives us our hull. Which I might want to, hollow out. I don't know if I need to really hollow it out, but we'll see. I do think this is a bit too big for an actual playing piece. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit, maybe to there. Okay, then I need the other pieces. So I'm going to add, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it, scale it up by the Y in, and then pull it out like that. I need it even more shrunk down, and then scale it by the Z up. Trying to get something kind of like, let me shrink that down a bit more, the prow of the ship. So let's see how close I can get to sort of a prow type thing. Looking at that image, I don't know what I'm going to do there. Let's rotate it a bit like that. Do we want that, or do we want it? Yeah, I can kind of come up and then back around. And then let's do the same thing back here. So that is a rotation of, I'm going to make that just a clean -10. I'm going to make that a rotation of +10. And then just fit that in. Try to make that pretty close. All right, so there's the beginning of my shapes. Obviously, I'll cut down that there, the top of this main piece. Hey, Matt, good to see you. And then we need the little face on top, the little head. So what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to add another UV sphere. I'm going to raise it up here. Move it over. I want that to be just straight at 0. Oops, these are not at 0. Oh, let me put these both. Let me put all of these. I did not realize that. There we go. They're all on that axis. So I can do that. Again, I will scale that out by the Y. Maybe scale that out on the X a little bit too to make a thing. So I'm trying to make a Viking ship here, which is turns out to not be easy. Maybe I'll do that. And these will be small pieces, so I don't need to worry too much about detail. That's not actually too crazy in terms of a sailing ship concept. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a cube. Put that at, actually I'm going to put that at the origin, so to speak. Pull it up here. And then we're going to scale that out a lot. Actually, we'll scale that this way as well. So I'm going to use this to cut off the top of this boat. So I want to shear off most of the top of that. Let's make it a little wider. Okay, so I'm going to go and select the bottom of it. Go over to the modifier controller. Add a Boolean of difference. So I want to basically do an operation where I'm going to take one object and subtract another object from it. I will select that cube, apply. You don't see any difference, but when I delete this cube, we see we've chopped off the bottom of that boat, which is pretty cool. Actually, I'm going to pull this back in because I'm actually going to reuse this to do the same thing here. That's actually kind of interesting. This is rotated by -10. We're going to do the same thing here. Oh, no, before we do that, we're going to scale it that way so we can slice out plenty. Okay. So this is what? Was it -10? Yeah. Then we push that forward. And again, we do the same kind of thing, although I need this to be down further. That's fine. Oops. So we're going to take that, same thing. Go to modifiers, Boolean difference, select the cube, apply. And that should chop, that should chop off some of that. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that was a, we have a shell now. That's not what I wanted. Difference, cube, carve. Whoops. Yeah, it's having some problems with that shape. So let me, all right, I'm going to have to reorient this. Let me make this a little taller, a lot taller. That's awfully tall. There we go. Sometimes if you don't orient it right, it can't cut correctly. Let's try that. Boolean difference, cube, apply. And we pull that away and we should have, nope, it's still weird. Is that, there's still, yeah, see that, you see these yellow lines here? That means that something's not slicing correctly. It means there's extra geometry that it's not able to figure out. Interesting. So let me go back. That's before the difference. Oh, that threshold. Let's try that. For some reason there's a weird Overlap threshold? Nope, still doing it. I must have changed that. Try 1. I have no idea what that should be. I can always undo like crazy, but ooh, yeah, that's not good. Oops. Cube. Yeah. We do 0.1. Oop. 0.01. Nope. Okay. 0. Yeah, it's still having some weird problem with the shape. So if I move it out a little bit, oops, wrong way. If I move it out a little bit, is it still doing it? It is. Yeah, it still has that problem. I think these are solid objects. They shouldn't have that problem. Okay, so I'm having an issue here. Alright, let's just kill it. Kill that one. Yeah, I'm gonna delete that one. What I'm actually gonna do is make a copy of that one. Rotate it around the X. We're gonna do minus 100. I'll give it a similar thing. We're gonna scale it down, and then was that? Yeah, that's right. Scale it down even further. Move it forward. Not bad. Let's scale that Z down a bit, maybe. Yeah, that's not too bad. Make it a little bigger, and then re-rotate it to minus 100. Gotta be a little careful here that you don't of how you scale and when you scale. Yeah, that looks about right. Cool. Then we will duplicate that, pull it over here, and rotate it around the Z 180 degrees. So now it's the exact same thing, just pushed out a bit. Okay. I like that a lot. Pretty happy with that. And then now we need, the other question is, there's also a large piece. I'm actually going to scale this down here. Okay. I think it's going to be a more reasonable piece. So there's the beginning of our Viking ship. I'm not honestly thrilled with that. The other option is we make basically something that looks more like this. So we make just like pawns in chess. Hey Echo, no, this is, oh shoot, wrong workshop. Valhalla board game. Forgot to change the title. I have updated that. Hopefully it will figure itself out. Dope. Let's see. So we could just do essentially pawns for our various things, because this isn't looking too Viking shippy. And Viking ships are, you know, they're long and pointy. So I'm not too happy with this. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to go ahead and let's see here, pull this down. I think there's a way in here to create in the scene. Can I create add group instance empty? Plain axes, sure. And then can I There's some way of grouping these. Pretty sure there is, but I can't figure out what it is. So I'm fine. I'm just gonna hide these three guys. I'm gonna kill that empty thing. And then I'm gonna add my pawns. So I'm gonna add a cylinder. That'll be my base. I'm gonna move that to here. I'm also gonna move my origin closer to that. And then I'm gonna scale, I'm actually gonna do this here. So I'm gonna scale the, well actually, so these are in millimeters. Well, actually these are millimeters. So I actually want to measure. Let me grab a ruler. So my pieces, I want to be, let's say, an inch. Well, actually, let's go by centimeters. 20 centimeters feels like a pretty good, size for a pawn. So I'm going to go 20 by 20 by 5 for the base of our pawns. Maybe a little bit big. Let's go 4. And then we need our center thing. So we're going to add another cylinder. Pull it up a little bit. That one's going to be, let's say, 8 by 8 by, we'll go up 30. Whoa. 20. Still seems a little large. 15. 15 centimeters. Yeah, I can live with that for now. Yep. And I'm going to position that. Oh, nope. A bit too much. Yep, no, that's too much. So we need it to be somewhere around there. So let's go with 7.5. So it's about halfway in there. And then we're going to have our top. So that's going to be a UV sphere, which we'll pull up. If this is 20, that's 15. That's 8, excuse me. Let's make that maybe 12 by 12. Whoops. Let's make that 12 by 12 by 12. All right, so there's a basic pawn shape. Not terrible. I'm actually going to try 10 by 10 by 10. Yeah, I like that better. We will lower that down to, say, 16. All right, and then I want to curve this in. I'm going to play around a little bit with that. And the way I'm going to do that is by, first off, I'm going to select my objects and rename them. So I'm going to go base, neck, and top. And they're all automatically alphabetized. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to hide my base and my, oops, that's the wrong thing. That's the top. This is sphere. There we go. Take my neck, hide my top. All right, so there's the thing. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to, I need to move into edit mode. I'm going to add extra points to this. So I'm going to mesh faces. Is it faces? Vertices? Need to subdivide. Remember where that is. Edges. Subdivide. Edges. Subdivide. So that gives me an extra line around there. So we need mesh, edges, subdivide. Do it one more time. Mesh, edges, subdivide. So now we have all of these rings to work with. Oh, how do I work with that? How do I select? Yeah, I can do. Oops. I'm gonna gonna deselect all. I can do this. That's gonna select all of those. That might actually work. You just select just the. Oops. So if I do this, then I do. Oops. This. Good. Then this. Then this. All right. So I've got this, so to speak. Now I think I can scale that. Yep, just like this. So that's shrinking it down there. And then I can unselect all of those. Go all the way around. Didn't quite make it. Ah! Sorry. Okay, select all those. Go around. B again for box. Box selection. B again. B. Okay, so I've got all of those. And actually I want to do the same thing down here. So I've got both of these. I'm going to make sure I get all of them. Okay, then if I do this, whoops, wrong one. Dang it. Huh, that's funny. I want these. We'll get there. We'll get there. Nope. That one. All of those. Want all of those. Okay. Then I can do that. We get a nice curve going there. That's not bad. And then the same thing here. We'll get there. And then down here. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Just on its own. Like some kind of futuristic building or a prop from Tron or something. Okay, and then we shrink that down a little there. Cool. So we now have this nice curve to our pawn. Go back to object mode, and now we have that. Now we can take our base, oops, our base and our top. Now we look at that and oh, these are off. That should be 0, 0, so that should be 0, 0. Apparently got my things a little bit off there. Okay. So do we like that as a pawn for our piece? I think this is a little oversized. So we'll go down to 2. Only 2 millimeters high, which seems a little, like not that much, but for a playing piece, it kind of makes sense. Hey Mike, I'm making sort of board game pieces here, basically. I think what I'm gonna do is a little trick. I want to have a softer curve down here. So I want the cylinder to kind of curve into the base. So I'm going to add another sphere. I'm going to scale it up like that. Then I'm going to scale it down in that dimension. So it'll be this thing, almost like that. I'll probably cut off the bottom of it. And I'm going to actually make it a little thinner. It's not bad. And then is that still on the... Yep, still coming through the bottom a little bit. If I pull it up a little bit, is that okay? Yeah, it's still a nice thing. Okay, I like that. I like having that that slight added thing. Yeah, I think it's gonna look okay. So there's our piece. I'm almost tempted to, yeah, that's what I need to do. So I'm gonna scale that out to 20 by 20. That's gonna become our new base. So let me remove that base and make that my base 2. And obviously I'll have to, yeah, so if I do this, and then just cut off the bottom, I'll have a nice, curve on that. So a couple different ways of doing that. I think the easiest is going to be to add another cube, scale it out to 22 by 22 by, we'll say 5, 0 by 0 by 0, and then pull it down by, what need to be, looks like minus 1.5. That should slice that off. Now we figure out if we're having any problems with that cylinder or not. So there's our base, there's our cube. As before, we're going to go in with our add modifier, Boolean, difference, cube, apply. Move the cube out of the way for now, and then check the bottom of that. There we go. Cool. Nope. So it needs to go below that. But this is it. So if we just go to 0 to zero, excuse me, on the Z there, let do it. It needs to come up a little bit, it looks like. So we're going to make that go up to 8, and that go up to 16.5. There we go. Nice. Now is that hovering? I don't think so. No, it's not hovering. Cool. All right. So there's our pawn. It's a very generic pawn, I will admit. We could add little horns, but Vikings didn't actually have horns on their helmets, so that's a little silly. But this is kind of a standard pawn-esque piece. Let me look back at the objects here. So they actually have like a double pawn. So there's the base, a cylinder, a globule, a cylinder, and a top, which is not crazy. It's kind of interesting visually. So let me do this. I'm gonna save this. 3D Models Mine. I'm going to create a folder called Valhalla Board Game. And I will go in there. Why am I not see? There it is. I'm going to call this Valhalla Game Piece. Whoops. But I'll spell it right. Save under file. Okay. So that's saved. So now what I can do is I can play around a little bit by, I could really just duplicate the neck, swing it up, duplicate the top, and swing it up. That's a really tall piece. So then I could then scale this down by, to say 10. And this one down by another 10, and do something like that, and then even it looks pretty cool. I gotta admit, I like that general idea. Let's try making this a little bigger, maybe. Actually, you know what? No, let's do the opposite. Let's shrink it down in one dimension. How does that look? Maybe shrink it down even more. Let's do 8 by 8 by, no, that's not enough, or it's too much. Let's do 9 by 9 by 7. Pull that down. Pull that down onto that. And then push that down onto that. That's an interesting shape. Like, I'm not horrified by that. Let's make it even wider. What do you think of that? That's kind of interesting. I think I will also make the top not quite as big, so make that maybe an 8. Pull it down. I could be more precise, obviously, with my positioning here. But for now, let's just put it down all that way. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a pretty neat shape. So what I'm going to do now is save that. Then, actually, no, I'm going to select just the shape and do a File, Export, STL. I will do just the selection only at the current default scale. I'll export that. So I now have an STL file of this. And I'm going to go over to Ultimaker Cura, and we're going to look at this in, oops, I don't know why that disappeared. There we go. So we're going to look at this in a 3D modeling, or a 3D slicing app for 3D printers. And for some reason it didn't want to launch. Try that again. Here it comes. And so we can see how big this will be, because like we can see the dimensions and so forth, but really you want to look at something when it's actually there to have a better idea of what you're actually working with. So 1 second while I get this figured out size-wise, because it really doesn't want me fiddling with that. There we go. So if that's there, that should be about like that. And we will switch over to Ultimaker Cura. And then we'll go ahead and drag and drop. Let me just find that file real quick. Let's see here if we go onto the computer. There's the computer. There it is. Printing, mine, Valhalla. Oh, did we do that onto the shared drive? I think we did. Apparently. So one moment while I pull that off of the shared drive. Let me just look. Sure enough, not a bad thing. All right, so I'm just dragging and dropping that onto here. So there's our piece. So we can get a sense. So basically, that's a fairly large piece. I believe that is, I believe each of those squares is 10 centimeters. So that's a 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter piece, which is, you know, a little under an inch. It's like 3/4 of an inch. Actually, not too bad. I said I wanted a 20-inch piece. It doesn't look too family inappropriate. It's going to be fairly tall. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to try 3D printing that at some point. And I think that'll be a pretty decent starting point for our pieces. So that I'm okay with. We also need a die, as in dice. So let's switch back to Blender. And I'm going to go ahead and save that and open up a new file. All right, so we're going to go in. How can I view, is there a way of viewing origin? I don't know. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. So I'm going to set the origin to 0, 0, 0, so that when I put things in there, it'll start there. So I want a die, and a die is obviously a cube. So we'll start there, and we want our die to be a decent size when you roll it. So I'm going to go with, and I know there are, well, let's see here. What are the standard die sizes? I'm just going to Google real quick. Standard die sizes. Dice sizes explained. Dice, 12, 16, 12 are the typical board game, or often found in board game. 16 is the most common size. So and then 19 are larger, easier to read. And we also got fairly large pieces. So I'm going to go with a 19 millimeter die. I'm going to go 19 by 19 by 19. Yeah, it looks big, but that's because we're all zoomed in. Okay. Now let me show you what this die is supposed to look like, because we got something to play around with here. So one of the neat things about this is that the dice in Valhalla are not your typical dice that we are used to. They have several different symbols on them, and we have some ways of doing that. Let me just pull up. There we go. So we basically need a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1 on here. And I could actually do that just with pips, but there are actual symbols used in the original game of Valhalla. But I want to do this in a way that is obvious to the player which those mean, basically, what those mean. So we're going to see how this works. So we have an X to move 4 spaces, a lightning bolt to move 3 spaces, an arrow to move 2 spaces, and an N to move 1 space. I think what I'm going to do is I will put those symbols in the side, but I will also add pips into like the corners to indicate, how many spaces you're moving. So I think that will work. All right. So we have our thing. So we're going to start with the X, and I think I'm going to put that on the top. I'm on the top now. I need to figure out how big my pips are going to be, and I think 2 millimeters makes sense. I'm going to add mesh cylinder and pull that up here. So let's, as before, we need to look at our stuff. So cube, I'm going to call this the die, and we're going to call this top pip 1. And now we're going to be a little bit more careful. So the X uses 4 pips, so I'm going to be very specific about this. So that's going to be, let's see, that's 19. I think that's going to make sense. So if this is at this exact position, so 10 millimeters up, 0, 0, 0, I'm going to cut that out of the die and just see what I have. Whoops. I got the wrong stuff. That is a die. That is top pip 1. Okay. I'm going to go back to the die, do my modifier again, Boolean difference with top pip 1, apply. Then we'll hide the top pip. Do we like that? Is that a reasonable? Yeah, I think that's a good amount of cut, if you will, out of there. So I'm not going to keep that there. I'm going to basically place a whole bunch of objects all around the die and then cut them out when I'm done. So I kind of have everything saved. So I'll cut all of them out and then revert back to before they're all cut out. And I should have a full object. Although actually I should be able to do the modifier without actually applying it. That should work, but we'll see. I also need to position these pips, so I'm going to position them in each corner. So I go 10, oh, that's going to be too much, 8, 8. It seems too far in the corner. I'm going to go 7, 7. How does that look? Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay. And we'll duplicate that. Oops. And it's going to go to -7. Duplicate again. It'll go to -7, -7. Duplicate that again. It's going to go to -7, 7. Oops, nope. 7, -7. Okay, so there are our pips, and we will rename them. Top pip 2. Yeah, this is kind of laborious, but by doing this, everything's organized. Now we need a cross. That's going to be adding a cube. This is at 10. This will be at. It needs to be at 10. I'm going to go with 0, 0. And then we're going to extend it in the Y to say 8. 10. And I'm going to rotate it around the Z-axis by 45 degrees. So there's half an X. That makes sense. Oops, keep doing that. So that'll cut in. I can go a little bit further on that. So we'll go with 12. Yeah. And then, so that's going to be top X1. Then we'll duplicate that, call that top X2. I just need to rotate -45. So now we have our X. Make sense? So there's our stuff. So that'll all get cut into the object. These are all the exact same z, the exact same height. Right? You see that 2 down there on the z on all these. So when I cut these out, and they're all the exact same z in terms of position. So when I cut these out, they're all going to be the exact same distance, down. All right, so we have that. Then we need a lightning bolt for 3 spaces. I'm going to put that down here. Not that it really matters. So we need our pips. So I'll add a cylinder. That's going to need to be pulled out here to 10, right? Or I'm sorry, minus 10. All right. Yep, sure enough. And then these go out by 7. So we'll go x7. And then a z of, should be 7, right? Yeah. You just need to rotate that around the x-axis by 90 degrees. So there's one of our pips. Obviously, we have 3 pips, so they can't all be here. But we're going to stop there. So we're going to say, actually, we can have the actual names. Sowilo, which is probably pronounced differently. Sowilo pip 1. So we should probably actually, what we should do is call that by their, so we're going to call that Gebo x1, because Gebo is the name of the actual rune. So we're teaching ourselves a little bit of Old Norse. Oops. Okay, so there's our Gebo X's. This is our Sowilo pip 1. We duplicate that, call that pip 2, and move that over to minus 7. So there's that pip. Duplicate again. Pip 3. That's going to be at 0 on the X and at minus 7. Yeah. So there's our pips. And then we need to add the actual lightning bolt. And that is going to be, we're going to cheat a little bit here. We're going to add another cube. We're going to put that at, we're going to start with 0, 0, 0. Then we're going to pull it backwards on the y by 10. Oh, minus 10. There it is. And so we're going to construct, you see, our lightning bolt is a wet, okay, yeah. So I'm going to take this. Yeah, I'm actually going to pull this out for a second. And then I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select these 2 edges and stretch them out. See what I'm doing there? Actually, I'm going to do that. 3, 3. Oops. That's all nice and stretched. See that? And then wedge. Actually, I might be able to fix this. Go back to object mode so it sticks, and then put it back to minus 10. So this is going to be Gebo Mark 1. Well, actually, we'll just call it Gebo 1. And then I'm going to duplicate that, Gebo 2. And I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to rotate it around the y 180 degrees. So we should be getting, that's a nice little lightning bolt, actually. I'm pretty happy with that. See that? It's fairly small, so I could actually say make it a 5 and a 3. Whoops, wrong dimensions to change. So maybe a 6 and a 6. Same thing up here, a 6 and a 6. What are we getting there? That's not bad. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Kind of hard to see with the cube back there. but I'm willing to live with that. And we have our lightning shape. Cool. So there's our Gebo. I'm going to save this. Valhalla die. Hit Blender file. All right. So there's that piece. Now we're going to go Tiwaz and arrow, which would be 2 spaces. I'm going to go over here for our Tiwaz. We'll add a cylinder. This is all making sense now. It's all working. The X is going to be 10. The Y is going to be 7. And the Z is going to be 7. And we rotate it around the Y 90 degrees. All right. So there's, what do we call this? Tiwaz. Tiwaz pip 1. And Tiwaz is an arrow with for 2 spaces. So I think what I'll do here actually is something a little different. We're going to put this on, do I put it on either end, or do I put it in 2 corners? 2 corners is kind of nice. That's typical for the 2. But for an arrow, it's kind of weird to have it on 2 corners of that, as opposed to have it on opposite sides of that. Well, tell you what I'll do. Let me do one. Tiwaz? Tiwaz. Tiwaz pip 2. Get that right. Gotta be right. And so -7, -7. We'll do that, and then we'll add the arrow and see where it is. So the arrow is going to be, I think, just cubes made into lines. So we will add a cube, put it at 10, 0, 0, and then make the Z 12 maybe? Yeah, that'll be fine. I could even just do a like a triangle. Yeah, I'll just do a triangle. So this is the Tiwaz itself, part 1. We're going to duplicate that. No, we're not going to duplicate that. Let me undo that. I'm going to add another cube, put it at 10, 0, 0. Now that we have a good idea of how this works. And I'm going to do kind of what I did before. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. And then I'm going to essentially cut down or push down the top of this cube so it's a triangle. So I'll zoom in a little bit. Go into edit mode. Grab these vertices and pull it down like that until it's pretty straight. That's actually pretty darn straight. Cool. Object mode. And then that will go back to 10. I'm just going to push that down because I want to expand that out a little bit. So I want, let's see, we don't want the X to change, but we want, say, a 5 and a 5. That's pretty big. 4, 4. Yeah, maybe I'll make this not quite as big. Yeah. And then we go, and we can, you actually kind of guesstimate by looking around and saying, oh, okay, so that's obviously, it should be at -5. And that will put it right where it needs to be. Yeah, so there's our arrow in the side. It's a little weird, the positioning. So I'm actually going to push it up a little bit. So the Z is going to be at 2 and -3. Yeah, that's good. So it's kind of in the center of that. So do we like those on the corners, or should they be either side? I think the corners are fine. The corners make sense. But I just realized, okay, there's the other. Yep, that needs to be renamed. Okay. So we have all of our Tiwaz. So we're almost done here with the die. Gone pretty quickly. Then a Hagalas, which is an N. So I'm going to go over here. Actually, I'm going to go... Shouldn't matter. I'm just going to go over here then. Add mesh. Where's my cylinder? Cylinder. That's going to go... Yep, so we want 10, actually let's go 10, 0, oops, 10, 0, 0. Well, we know we want, so we'll have an N, and then we'll have I think the pip's going to have to be like in the center. So let's put it up here. And rotate that around. Okay, so there's our Hagelas1, pip1, excuse me. Important to get those right. There's our Hagelas, not Hagendas, Hagelas. And then we need an n. So we will add a mesh, again, just like before. We're going to add a mesh, put it at 0, 10, 0. We will expand it in the, I think the end's just going to be like this. So we will expand it in the Z to, say, 10. That's not bad. We will think this will be part of the N. So it's going to be easier if I start with the middle piece. So I'm going to rotate that by, oops, is that right? On the Y. Yeah, by, is 45 enough? Do we want to go with like a big wide N? I'm going to look at the images he put in here. No, it's like a runic N. So actually, we do want that, but we want the ones on the side. Okay, all right, so that's going to be fine. This is Hagelas. I'm actually going to call this Hagelas 2, because I don't have ones on either side. I'm going to duplicate that. Oops. I'm going to duplicate that. Call that Hagelas 1. I'm going to orient it correctly to the right and move it over on the X to some point. Yeah, looks like a 3 is going to be about right. 3. Although it looks like, no, there's a bit sticking out. So we're going to go 3.5. Is that what we want? Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. Sweet. So there's Hagelas 1. Then we duplicate that. It's going to be Hagelas 3. And we make that minus 3.5, so it's on the other side. So there's our N with the 1 pip. That's pretty good. I could go larger on the N. Maybe I will. We have the arrow. We have... Oops, sorry. We have the N. I don't like the idea of a... Yeah, let's just try 12 and 12. That's nice. That's more runic. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so there's our die. Obviously, it's not... So the one issue here I'm having is that I didn't think about counterbalancing. So basically, ideally, these 4 things should be along one axis, and the top and the bottom should be blank to kind of counterbalance it better. But then, yeah, it's actually true. So the blank side there, so I could... Unfortunately, I can't just move one onto one side or the other. I would have to rotate this stuff around. So what would be the easiest one to rotate? This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. This has 4. So this would actually be the easiest one. So I would need, but no, I need one that's opposite. So I need to move either this one or this one. So it should be that one. To move basically onto the bottom. Is that right? Yeah, then we'll have one on their side. So I should really do that. Okay, let's just do it. Let's see here, the X needs to be minus 10. What? No. The Z needs to be 10, minus 10. And then we're going to go 7 there. And then we're going to rotate that, not at all. So there's our first pip moved. Minus 7. And then the Z is now 10, right? Nope. Hold on. X. Yeah, Z should be minus 10. The X should be 7, minus 7. There we go. And then no rotation. Okay, so we've got the pips moved. And again, the nice thing here is that we've got our objects kind of all figured out. So we're going to make that 0 on the X. 10 on that. And minus 10 there. and then 2 on the y. Nope, we gotta figure that out in a second. Rotate that around the y by 90 degrees. So that's there. And then this, that's gonna be z of minus 10. We know we wanna rotate it around that way. And then the x is gonna be, that's right, because it was originally like minus 3.5, right? Something along those lines. Or minus 5 or something? I don't know. We're going to say minus 3.5 because we know that was kind of what it was before. And that's going to be pushed up by minus 12. Whoops. That needs to be x'd up by 2. There we go. By 1 maybe. 1.5? That's about right. And then if we look at that, yeah, that's about right. Cool. So we now have everything the way we want it. All right. We can make our die. Alrighty, we save that. And now we're going to see how all this works. It's going to be kind of interesting. So we're going to go up to our die. We're going to add a Boolean. Difference, Gebo 1. And we're going to add another Boolean. Difference, Gebo 2. Add another Boolean. Difference, Gebo pip 1. Get the idea? Difference, Gebo pip 2. This is going to get kind of crazy. Difference, pip 3. Boolean. Difference, pip 4. Why do we have a Gebo 1? What's Gebo 1 and Gebo x1? Gebo 1. Gebo 2. Oh, we've got some miscommunication here. Gebo is the x. That's not Gebo. That's Sowilo. Yeah, we just have pips for that, so we're going to fix that. Sowilo 1. Sowilo 2. Okay, go back to our die. So we already have Sowilo 1 and 2. We have the Gebo pips. Now we're going to add difference Gebo x1, Boolean, difference Gebo x2. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to file, export STL, Valhalla die selection only. I've only selected the die. So what I've done so far here is I have removed certain elements from the die, but I have not made it permanent. However, those changes are there. They have been subtracted from the die. So if I export that die, I should see the changes for just those elements of the die, and I can check to make sure things are the way I expect them to be. So I'll export that STL. Then I'm going to take that die. Well, let's show what's happening here. So I'll switch that over to Cura. And I'm going to take that Valhalla die and put that on there. I'm actually going to remove that. Push that a little bit further. And then we're going to go ahead and zoom in. And look at that. Sure enough, the X is cut out and the lightning bolt is cut out. And that's partly cut out. Don't know why it's only partly cut out. I thought we did both of these Sowilo pieces. Let's go back in, double check. They're in the same spot. Die. Sowilo 1 and Sowilo 2. Unless I just can't see it from here, which is certainly possible. But I sure don't see that cut. Let me go back and check. Sowilo 1, Sowilo, yeah, they're the same operation. It's possible they're interfering with each other a little bit because they overlap. So what I can do I could be a little more careful about it. So if I went 1.5 and minus 1.5, is that going to be exactly right? Or are they going to overlap? It looks like they overlap a little bit. Let's go 1.6 and minus 1.6. See what happens. Yep, there's definitely a gap there. There's 1.55. 1.55. Ooh, actually, oops, 1.55. Is there still a gap? There's a slight gap there. Let's try it with that gap. So selecting that cube again, same idea. I'm gonna go in, export, replace it. I'm going to reload all models. And sure enough, there's the lightning bolt in there. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with there being some slight discrepancies. So let's go back to Blender. And we'll put in the rest of Cielo. So we'll add another difference. Which we're going to do a lot of scrolling here. So we want now Cielo pip 1. I'm actually going to do a bunch here. Pip 1. Difference. Cielo pip 2. Difference. Cielo pip 3. Okay, again, we're not applying. We're going to export that. And I'm not going to show you. I'm just going to go over there and double check. Reload models. Sure enough, I'm seeing those pips. Okay. So we continue. So we have Gebo and Cielo. Now we can do Hagelas. Hagelas only has 4. So we're going to go up. Add 4 more booleans. And then go down. We're into difference Hagelas 1, difference Hagelas 2, difference Hagelas 3, and a difference Hagelas pip 1. I think there's only 1 pip. We export. And again, importantly, this seemed crazy, like this seemed very time consuming, but actually not that bad. Like now that we're actually doing it, it's like, okay, not terrible. Oops, looks like I made a mistake there. Difference. Oh no, they're all different. Oh, we're having the same problem because they overlap. We may have to apply each one. We may have to apply those for it to actually take. Because that's not slicing correctly. That's not differencing correctly. Because those objects do overlap. I could also make one object out of those and slice it. Okay, let's come back to that later. Probably gonna have the same thing. What's interesting is, well, it's interesting that the X is okay. No, the X is not. Is the X not okay? 1 second. Oh no, the X did something weird, I think. I'm seeing a weird, yeah, the X did something weird. Huh. Yeah, all right, so that's something I'm gonna have to deal with. Okay, but this does give us an option, actually. So we have Cielo Hagelas, and we need Tiwaz, right? We haven't done Tiwaz yet, have we? Cielo, Gebo, Cielo, okay, yeah. So Tiwaz has 4. Let's go back up, add 4 more booleans. We'll go down, and we will add difference Tiwaz 1, difference Tiwaz 2, difference Tiwaz pip 1, difference Tiwaz pip 2. And then we re-export. Yeah. Export. All right, and again, I'm just gonna reload that in Cura. I'm not gonna show it to you just right yet. So I can just double check this is what I expect it to be. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so now we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna do something a little scary. We're gonna see how it works. I'm going to apply all these modifiers. Actually, can I? No. But I'll undo it when I'm done. And one way you can kind of prove that to yourself is by moving this in a really weird place. And then I think I can do that. Then I undo. And then I put it back where it should be. Yeah. And then I'm going to do all these applies. And then when I undo, I'll get back to the point where it's moved weirdly. And I will know that's where I am. Export STL. Export STL. Reload model. And that should be fixed. But it is not. All those things are still funky. Huh. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo, and keep on undoing until I reach that point where it's over on the side. So I know I've got everything back to where I was before. I will reposition this as it should be. So now the question is why this difference is not working. It should be when a difference is this, it cuts that out. When a difference is this, it cuts that out. But it's not doing that. What I can do is basically go in and do it manually. So I can go in and make the one cut, move the piece into position, make the other cut. The other option is just put the pips on. So I can just basically ignore the other, wait, what? Yeah. I can ignore the symbols and just make the die with the pips. That's an option. But that's kind of annoying to have to do that. And like I said, the other option would be to actually fuse these objects. So let's try that. So if I take x1, I Boolean, and I union with Gebo x2 and apply that, then I will have a single object there. So let's try that. Let's go back here. All the modifiers are still on. So I'm going to file export STL. And I don't need to keep that other object there. If I reload that model, it's still funky. It's still screwing up. Is that just a... Whoa, wait a minute. That's interesting. Oh, yeah, no. That's just a shadow? Oh, weird. There's a cut there. Why is there a cut there? Yeah, there shouldn't be a cut there. All right. So let's go ahead and... Oh, because we still have the modifier on the Gebo x2. Okay, hold on. So let's do this again. We're going to Boolean union Gebo x2 apply. We're going to take Gebo x2 kill it and not render it. Go back here. If I take x1, no, it's still slicing. Interesting. So if I take x2, what if I just delete x2? Like the die. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So like I said, I don't need to keep that cube. I can, I'm fine with just having the x. Let's export that. Reload the model. No, it's still not. It's only slicing part of it. Why would that be? X1 die is only cutting out basically one of the parts. So another possibility is okay. How do I get back? Okay, so now I have my Gebo. Yeah, there we go. The other possibility is to intersect with Gebo x2. No, that's not going to work. We want union. Makes one big object. So this is not differencing the way I'd hoped. Which is annoying. Because the other ones are fine. But for some reason, it's just not cutting as it should. Hey, Little Prince. I like Blender. There is a very steep learning curve. But it does what it says on the tin. All right, so I think you get the idea here, though, of what I have. So I could play around a little bit more with the best way of doing this, but I think you have the idea of how to do this in Blender. I may actually have to take these objects and like export this as like an STL file and then re-import it. That's what I'd have to do. So I have to take this object, actually just these two objects. So I can basically take, well, let's try it. I can take these two things, file, export, STL. I'm just going to call that die. Oh, what is that called? You need to get the term right. Gebo. Die Gebo. Then if I file import STL and I pull in the Gebo, that is now an actual object. Oops. So there should be, yeah, die Gebo is now a thing. So I can now effectively remove the other ones. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, let me, just for purposes of this, again, we can always undo, do that, and then I'm going to add another modifier for the die Gebo. Difference die Gebo. And then if I export that, because that STL is now a solid object. Valhalla die. And so if I now reload that model, whoa, it's still not happy. Weird, because that is a single solid object. Well, maybe it's not. 1 second. 3D printing. Make manifold. Whoa. Okay. So that is not a happy object. That is not manifold. Okay, so there's some funkiness with that object for some reason. Alrighty. So we've learned a lot. Let me undo, get back my Gebo X and 1. So if I deleted this, take those two, whoops, whoa. What's going on there? I've got some weirdness in this object. That's there. Oh, we're already cut. Why are we already cut? How could we be already cut? There. All right. Back to normal. So I take those two things. I probably have to union them and then export them. You get the idea. So yeah, we have to make solid objects out of these, use those to cut with, and then create our die out of that and then 3D print it. So next time, I'm going to come back with 3D prints of these in some form. And from there, we're going to actually make the map and make the board, basically probably on a piece of fabric with like some fabric marker or something like that. And that will be the plan. So hope you join me next time for that. I will see you for that, and we'll see how far we get with the board game of Valhalla. Until next time, make something.